People discuss fascism and fascist dictators of the 1930s. Often they focus primarily on Adolf Hitler and the German National Socialist Party, or Benito Mussolini and the Italian fascists. But there is another European country that experienced the rise of a fascist dictator in the 1930s, and one that would hold power long after the end of World War II. Following the defeat of the Republican Army during the Spanish Civil War in 1939, General Francisco Franco and his nationalist forces took control over Spain. Franco's power was reinforced with the support of the fascist parties, the Spanish oligarchy, and the immensely powerful Spanish Roman Catholic Church.
During his early military career, Franco wasn't thought of by his peers as being very political or as being an ideologue. He'd always been a soldier, and when he ruled over his country, he did so as if the citizens were soldiers in his battalion, attempting to suspend all the social and economic chaos that had defined Spain's history. He never created a constitution, he never compromised with the previous liberal prime minister. Instead, he imprisoned and killed thousands in revenge for the war.
Reactionary governments had always ruled Spain. Their forces had constantly proved able to overcome any large-scale progressive movement that would make a reach for power.
Until Franco's death in 1975, the people of Spain would have had to continue to live in a reactionary society with little to no freedoms. This is the story of one man who gave his life for the anarchist cause of defeating the professional hierarchy and liberating the oppressed population of Spain. It was 1901 when Emerico Bueneventura was born in the city of Madrid. He lived in a very comfortable apartment with his mother Tavio, his father Diego, as well as a brother and sister. His father worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs under Alfonso XIII, the King of Spain.
Only 6 years after Emerico's birth, his father is told to move the family to the United States. He had received orders from Madrid to embark on an extended diplomatic mission to Washington, D.C. in an attempt to improve interstate relations after the Spanish-American War, which had ended less than 10 years earlier.
It is important to understand that Emerico only spent a few years in Spain and never really developed a passion for his homeland. In fact, for most of his life, he didn't consider himself a Spaniard. His brother Hector, on the other hand, who was 15 when the family came to America, had already developed a Spanish identity. He found the transition much more rugged.
Hector was terribly hard on his brother. He was always harassing him and teasing him, like your typical older brother figure. His sister, on the other hand, was very kind to Emerico, often protecting him from his brother and parents. Considering how often he was getting into trouble with the headmaster in school, discipline from his parents was a common occurrence. He later wrote that on countless times he would go crying to his sister, who would comfort him. She had the ability to make him cheerful again, nearly every time.
Although Emerico found himself in trouble on a regular basis, he did very well in school. He wasn't necessarily number one in every class, but he excelled in all his studies, especially history, which he found fascinating. It was his fascination of history, more specifically radicalism within history, that developed his tendencies to question authority.
There were many occasions when Emerico would get in trouble by his father or his teachers, and he would insist on knowing the reasoning behind the rule. He claims to have been given a satisfactory answer only a handful of times, often feeling cheated. In fact, it was one of the times in the headmaster's office that he met his beloved friend Ernesto. Ernesto's father, as Emerico's, was transferred to the United States from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Madrid. The two hit it off as they both waited for their parents to meet with the headmaster after being thrown out of their respective classrooms.
Ernesto and Emerico became almost inseparable after this point, deeply shaping the development of the other. By 1914, the Great War had broken out in Europe. In school, in the family's newspaper, and at the supper table, Emerico listened intently to many different views and opinions of what this bloody war was all about.
The tensions that had been growing between the different alliances in Europe finally broke into violent conflict with the assassination of the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, Franz Ferdinand. This was the first time that Emerico really became aware of a war going on. He found it fascinating and his curiosity unquenchable. His brother, who was studying international relations at Georgetown University, would come home on the weekends for family dinners. His father and brother had a unique pro-Spain position on the war. Spain was not involved in the fighting, and never would be. But with all the major exporting nations, Germany, Great Britain, France, focusing all the energy of manpower, Spain was able, for the first time, to play a crucial role in
discuss fascism and fascist dictators in the 1930s. Often they focused primarily on Adolf Hitler and the German National Socialist Party. Or, by 1917, Emerico had started high school in the United States. But there is another European country that experienced the rise of a fascist dictator in the 1930s, and one that would hold power long after the end of World War II. One way or another. Many still did not support the war. Amongst them was the anarchist activist Emma Goldman.
When we were in a time of war, we no longer live in a liberal society.
Following
during the Civil War, we certainly were not. Lincoln arrested hundreds who spoke out against the war, and sure enough, during World War I, Wilson also repressed a large portion of those who demonstrated against sending innocent men to die in the abattoir of Europe for what they considered to be nationalism. Emma Goldman's No Conscription League was targeted towards working-class citizens, the ones who would have to take up arms. She also believed that the war was just a byproduct of militaristic capitalist governments, and so she was monitored very heavily by the government. Emerico was walking around Washington one fine May day and stumbled upon a poster advertising an election in the city the following night. Being himself from a conservative Spanish family and going to a very elite school, he really had only heard positive things about the war, and so eager to learn more about this dissent, he decided that the following night, he and Ernesto would sneak together and go. These two young men's lives, reactionary governments had always ruled Spain. Their forces had constantly proved able to overcome any large-scale progressive movement that would make a reach for power.
Until Franco's death in 1975, the people of Spain would have had to continue to live in a reactionary society with little to no freedoms. This is the story of one man who gave his life for the anarchist cause of defeating the professional hierarchy and liberating the oppressed population of Spain. Deja quieta la herramienta, que es la hora de luchar.